Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in today's video, I'll be doing a rules refresher for Nemesis Retaliation. And in this video, I'll assume you have a basic understanding of the Nemesis games already, and I will have a particular focus on solo mode. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I'm all set up to do a rules refresher for Nemesis Retaliation, and as I said in the intro, I am going to focus on the solo type of gameplay, but the solo rules aren't that different from multiplayer, so if you're looking to learn multiplayer, this is probably a good place to start as well. But I am going to make this video on the assumption that you know how to play the base game of Nemesis, because there is a lot of overlap, but there are a lot of important nuanced differences as well. So the intent of this video is really for people who've played Nemesis games, but now you're approaching Nemesis Retaliation. I want to tell you what you need to know so that you can kind of get going as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to jump right into it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to assemble this border here. It's several pieces that are all, you can kind of see, puzzle pieced together. So you're going to assemble this border, and do notice that one side is facing north. That will be relevant later. And so there's a couple locations on the map by default. There's a landing zone here and a Hibernatorium here, but other than that, we're going to be building out the map as we play. And the map is broken into several sections. You can see A, B, and C. Again, that'll be relevant later. But unlike previous Nemesis games, you don't exactly know the shape of the map that you are playing on. So there's going to be a much greater exploration aspect in this version of Nemesis. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff that we have to put out here as well. But before we do that, I want to talk about mission tasks and objectives and characters, even though you technically do all the map stuff first and then do the characters and other things later. Now, if you want to do some sort of character draft, that's fine. They've got the instructions for that in the book. But I'm just going to assume that you're all just picking the characters that you want to pick, or in particular, if you're playing solo, you're just picking one character. This is a true solo setup. So I have got here a character board. Everybody's going to get one of these. These boards themselves are identical, and then you're going to choose a character. Your character is going to have this piece here. So I've got Recon, and that just slots in the middle. I have not played Recon yet, but they look cool, so I think they'll make a good demo anyway. And then they're going to have these marks here across the bottom. This is their rank. So there are 7 marks here on Recon. As you can see here, the officer has 9. There are 8 on the combat engineer. There are 5 on the heavy gun operator, 2 on medical support, and 1 on the contractor. For some game effects, you may be able to order people of lower rank to do things. But of course, for true solo, that is not going to have any effect. Now, you're going to have in addition to your character little board there, you're going to have your 10 character action cards. This is just like in previous games. So look for those. They'll be marked on the bottom with the same name as your character, and they're all color-coded as well. These are going to work largely the same way they have in other Nemesis games. You'll notice iconography is a little different, but you have cards that cannot be used in combat. That's this symbol here. It's just showing a little coiled up intruder with a red line through it. So you've got your cards. You'll take your cards, shuffle them up, put them on the left side of your character board as normal. Then you'll also grab your starting item. All of the characters have 1 starting item except for the contractor. The contractor has 2. So the contractor is a little different, but you take your 1 starting item. In this case, we have an assault rifle, and it is a heavy item, so it's marked with heavy. So just like in previous games, heavy items must be either in your left hand or right hand. So put it in one of those slots. We'll take care of some of the other character setup stuff later, but I've got my weapon. And then if you are drafting characters, you're going to go around the table and draft. Everybody gets a turn, and then in whatever that draft order was in reverse order, you're going to take this deck of support equipment and you're going to shuffle it up, and then regardless of player count, you're going to deal out 7 cards. And in that reverse character draft order, everyone gets to draft 1 support equipment item, with the exception of the contractor, because the contractor starts with 2 items. So some of these will go, I think they're all heavy. They'll go in your hand slot, but you'll notice this is a vertical card. This is armor. So armor is new to this game. If you take an armor, you're going to put that in your heavily injured slot down here on the bottom of your character board. So you can hold up to 1 armor, and then each hand can hold something heavy. Heavy things are going to be marked with heavy, like all of these starting items, as well as eggs. Eggs are still heavy items. There are no more character corpses or intruder carcasses, though. So again, in reverse order, we'll go ahead and take heavy armor for demonstration purposes. And then after everybody's drafted their support equipment, the rest of these just go away. They're not used for the rest of the game, so you can put them back in the box. And then this wheel here is your oxygen wheel. It goes as high as 7, so go ahead and set it at 7 at the start of the game. And what else do we need? We're going to need 1 generic red cube as a health marker. Put it as far left as possible in this this healthy area on your player board. So this is the icon here for health, and as you play the game, you'll become injured and you'll lose health, and as it goes down you'll go from being healthy to injured, and you can go from being injured to being heavily injured. If you ever go below into this space here, well, I guess you're still heavily injured. The next thing that would happen is you would die. So if you count all that up, you've got 10 health slots, and from there you are dead. But you start with full health, and then if you do have an armor, again, that always goes in this heavily injured area. You can see it's kind of color-coded for that. It's got X's over those damage slots, so you cannot put your cube in those slots. Now, whenever your little health cube would move onto one of those spots where the armor is, in that instance, you must then immediately discard that armor unless that armor gives you any sort of special ability. And then you just continue to move the cube down the slots as normal. So that is how health generally works. Let's move on now to these mission tasks and objectives. So in a quote-unquote normal game of Nemesis where you're playing with semi-co-op and multiplayer, there's going to be a couple things that happen. One, you're going to shuffle up these mission tasks, and you're going to pick one at random and place it here on the mission task area of the board. And then you will also shuffle up these private objectives and mission objectives. Deal 1 of each to each player, and then of course you keep them secret. They look the same on the back, so each player gets to hold on to 2 of these, but you don't know which one that they have. Now, at any point on your turn, this does not count as an action, but you may choose to discard one of your 2 objectives, and then you only have 1 objective left. So the discarded one goes back to the box. Then you must achieve one of your objectives in order to win the game. And so there is another generic red cube that goes on this objective choice track. When the first player decides on their turn to discard one of their objectives, you move this down, and they draw the amount of cards listed here. So the first person who does that, they draw 3 action cards. They're the first to decide. The next person who chooses, this goes down 2 action cards, then 2 action cards, and then 1. And if you're the last, you also gain just 1 action card. So committing to one of your 2 mission objectives sooner allows you to draw more action cards and have a bigger turn. All that being said, none of that applies to solo mode. So we're going to get rid of all the objectives and mission tasks and even this cube. So instead, we're going to use this solo co-op mission task. So this is for solo play or full co-op. And in this mode, again, you're going to shuffle up all these cards and you're going to draw 1 per character. So I'm setting up for a true solo right now, so only 1 character, and you place it again in the same spot. And then for the mission to be successful, you must complete all of these objectives. So you might have, some sort of off to the side if you've got multiple full co-op characters, but you must achieve all of these objectives, and at least 1 character must survive. So that means in solo and co-op mode, you don't really need this marker because you're not choosing personal or mission objectives and then having that draw cards mechanic. So I just leave that cube off when I play solo. The next thing we can talk about is probably the Hibernatorium. So the Hibernatorium's got these 2 tokens that are going to go with it. This token means that the Hibernatorium is active, and on the backside, it is inactive or off. And so you can see it goes right there. By default, it is off. When you start the game, it is off. And there is a sector tile that you can find where the room action is to turn on the Hibernatorium. So at that time, you would take that token, flip it over. Now the Hibernatorium is able to be used for its room action to, go hibernate, as in other Nemesis games. In the meantime, we also have not discovered that room yet. So you take this undiscovered Hibernatorium token and place it right there. So that's just a reminder token saying that until a room is connected to one of these corridors, until that time happens, you cannot place noise tokens on any of these corridors. You can't interact with the Hibernatorium in any way. Once another room has been connected to the other side of one of these corridors, you remove this token and everything operates as normal. Now, the next thing we need to know about the Hibernatorium is you get this sweet two-part robot mini that we're going to assemble and place that in the Hibernatorium as well. Again, until the Hibernatorium has been discovered, or by which I mean, as long as this tile is here, which is until a room is adjacent to the Hibernatorium, we cannot interact with the robot at all. But during setup, we're going to take these various robot cards. There's different types of robots that might be in this facility. You know, there's a robot, it's in the Hibernatorium, but you don't know what kind it is. So you're going to shuffle up these cards, and you're going to place one of them at random up here on this robot card spot. So let's take a look at some of these. So military robot, server robot, securing robot, medical robot, exploration robot, and technical robot. So they all have different abilities, and so you kind of don't know what type of robot you're going to have until you discover the Hibernatorium. Now, whenever you are in the room with the robot, or if you are in a working room with a computer, or if you have a data token, which this server room can give you. And if you're in the server room, you can gain a data token as part of the room action. So if you have a data token, or you're in a room with a working computer, or you're in the same room as the robot, then you can interact with the robot. Now, the data token, by the way, just looks like this. It's this little square token here, and if you get one, you just put it on your player board. It's sort of the equivalent of send the signal from previous Nemesis games, but it also lets you control the robot from anywhere in the facility. So if you want to activate the robot, then you just spend one action card if you are in its room or if you have the data token. If instead you are controlling it from a room with a computer, you're going to have to discard an action card plus a second action card in order to interact with the robot. So what can the robot do? Well, each of the robot types has its own unique action. It might be able to attack, or fix things, or help heal wounds, all those sorts of cool effects. Or you can have the robot move. So when the robot moves, it'll move just to any adjacent explored room. And for all game purposes, all the intruders always ignore the robot. So the robot doesn't interact with the intruders, they never attack it, and it never has to make a noise roll when it moves. And then it is not a magic robot, so it cannot go through closed doors. Now, what's important is this room in this example is considered explored. Like, we can go from the Hibernatorium to the server room. We don't know what room might be here. The robot cannot go into an unexplored room unless you have the exploration robot. That's sort of its special ability. But by default, all the robot can do is move into an adjacent explored room. And then again, you can use whatever its special ability is. So again, at the beginning of the game, you're going to take all these robot cards, shuffle them up, and put one of them up here face down without looking at it in this robot section. Once you get to the Hibernatorium, then you can reveal what type of robot it is. All right, next, let's take these 3 life support tokens. We need to talk about life support and oxygen. So these are like the Hibernatorium token where they're off on one side and on the other side. By default, the pre-printed spaces, they're off. So when we start the game, you're going to start with life support in each section off. So each section, A, B, and C, does have its own life support system. And on your turn, if you end your turn, and this is each turn, not each round, if you end your turn, so your 2 actions or your passing action, in a section where the life support is off, you must expend 1 oxygen. So the 7 oxygen you have can feel like a lot, but it will go quickly. So you'll go down to 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then below 0, you're going to have this symbol here. This is the suffocation symbol. And as soon as that is revealed, you're going to take one of these suffocating tokens. They're all identical. They're the same on both sides. But you're just going to place one. Maybe we'll say on your player board is probably a good place for it. And there's instructions on it that basically says the next time you lose oxygen, you die unless you can gain oxygen. And we can talk about how to gain oxygen later, or at least some of the methods for gaining oxygen later. But one thing to know is that as you are exploring, there's Section A, Section B, and Section C. There are room tiles like this one here that might be revealed that are specific to the sections. This one says B, and on the back of it, there's a giant letter B. So as you're exploring, you may be told to either grab a room from the section you are in, so a Section A, B, or C room, respectively, or a random room. Maybe random's not quite the right word. A mystery room, I should say. So one of these question mark rooms. So you're going to have 4 stacks of rooms. So I'll put some of these out so you can see them. So you've got your A's, your B's, your C's, and then your question marks. Now there are 3 A's, 3 B's, and 4 C's. The reason there's an extra, quote unquote, extra C is because the B section starts with the Hibernatorium in it, the A section starts with the landing zone in it, the C section doesn't start with anything in it. So each of these areas has its own room tile that you can find that says life support control. So this is life support control B. So the room action here is to flip the life support token over. So either from malfunction or off to on, or from on to off, depending on what it is you want to do. So there is one of those for each section. So if you end your turn in a section where the life support is on, you do not need to consume oxygen. You just leave it where it's at. And this suffocating token says you can discard this token when you gain oxygen or when you end your turn in a section with the life support on. So if we were to be in section B here and we happen to be on this tile and turn life support on, or somebody else had maybe turned it on and then our turn ends, then we can discard this suffocating token. So we'll talk more about exploration and these room tiles again in a little bit, but that was a bit about oxygen and life support. Now again, the life support tokens beneath them and the Hibernatorium also have pre-printed off. That is because one of the rooms can have you, as one of the room effects, have you discard all of those tokens from the game. So they can just all be removed. And now the Hibernatorium and the life support are just off for the rest of the game, and that there's no more tile to flip. So that's why those are pre-printed like that. Now there's a few other easy things to take care of during setup. One is there's going to be one of these round marker tokens. We're going to place that on 1 at the start of the game. There are 5 egg tokens that is similar to previous Nemesis games, and we're going to put all 5 of those tokens in the nest. So you can stack them up nicer than that if you want to, but there they are. There's one auto-destruct token, so you can blow up this facility just like in other games, but some game effects may turn that on. So this is just a resting place for it, and then if you need it, you may be told to place it, 3 spaces ahead or on a certain space or whatever. So there's the self-destruct, or I think they call it the auto-destruct token. And then we have this lander token, and you'll see a lander icon on space 10 of the board there. Put the lander token there. So the lander, we can talk about that. Now that is one way that you may be able to escape this facility. Whenever the round marker ends on a space that is containing this token, which there are game effects that can move this either forward or backward. And you can have the choice on that. Whenever the round marker lands on this token, then the lander will try and come to the landing zone. And any number of characters can get into the lander and then take off, and that is one way out of the facility. Now, I said the lander will try to come to the landing zone because we also, during setup, have these 2 anti-aircraft tokens. These work just like the engine tokens in the first Nemesis games. We've got active and inactive. You're going to flip them to this side and shuffle them up, and then place them here on their designated space on the board. So as in other Nemesis games, there are game effects that allow you to look at those and perhaps swap them, but at the time that the lander is supposed to arrive, you will flip over the top tile and reveal, is the anti-aircraft mechanism active or inactive? If it is active, it shoots down the lander and the lander's just gone, so you're not using that to escape. If it is inactive, then everything is good, and you can put the lander token on the landing zone to show that it is here, and then characters can start to interact with the lander. And just as the life support and Hibernatorium tokens can be removed, so can the anti-aircraft tokens, and its default state is inactive. So we'll just set that there for the moment. And I should say that when the lander arrives, if the anti-aircraft guns are off and the lander successfully makes it to the landing zone, at that time you just discard those tokens. The anti-aircraft device can no longer be turned on at that point. So the lander's just safely made it to the landing zone. Now let me get my character out. Your characters always start in the landing zone. That is where characters always begin. But let's talk about using the lander. So once the lander has arrived, if you get your character onto the landing zone, you can use the room action there to get into the lander. And if you do successfully get in, take your mini and put it on the anti-aircraft space where you've already removed the anti-aircraft guns, and that just represents being inside the lander. Now, once you're in the lander, you cannot willingly exit the lander. The only way you can get back out is if an intruder appears in the landing zone, then all characters in the lander must exit the lander and go back into the landing zone to deal with the intruder. Otherwise, while you're in the lander, you never have to lose oxygen. You never take damage if there's fire in the landing zone. All of your turns are just skipped. You don't actually pass. You just auto pass if all other players in the round have passed. And then you still take part in the cleanup phase. You draw cards like normal. You can be the first player, but you don't take any actions as long as you're in the lander. And then at the very start of every event phase, any character in the lander can decide to launch it. It is not a group decision. Just any individual, if they say, yep, launch it, then the lander is gone. And everybody inside, you just take your miniature, put it back on your player board. You are considered to have escaped the facility, remove the lander token from the game. Nobody else can use the lander to escape. So I know we're talking about the end of the game while I'm still talking about setup, but that is how the lander works. And I think it's a pretty cool mechanic. And so now it's probably a decent time to talk about these tactical gear tokens. So there are 4 types. We've got ammunition, we've got health packs, we have grenades, and we have oxygen. So let's talk about what these things can do. You can gain these, and you've got a tactical belt here. Your tactical belt can hold any of these various types of tactical gear. Other slots on items, for example, like your assault rifle here has a red slot that can hold an ammo and only an ammo. You couldn't put grenades there, for example. It's got a color match. This heavy armor here has a green slot, so that could also hold a health pack. Now, during setup, you'll fill up all of your tactical gear icons on any anything that's in your hands or any armor that you have, and you'll also fill up your tactical belt. Now, when the color is not specified, either on your tactical belt here or some items will have a gray box, then you get to choose in those cases what items to start with. Now, it's recommended if you don't have a lot of experience playing this game, then your tactical belt at the beginning of the game, maybe just take one of each thing. That's not a bad idea. And so these tactical gear tokens can be used on your turn. So you've got these actions here on your character board. It's a nice reference. You've got basic actions. You can play a card for its action. You can pass. And then you've got a list of actions here where you discard one action card in order to take the action. And then a couple actions here to discard 2 cards, like do a cautious movement or use the room action. But one of these discard 1 card actions is use a tactical gear token. So then you can take any tactical gear token that's either in your belt or on any of your equipment here, and you can spend it for its effect. So I could spend this oxygen token here to gain 3 oxygen. And if you are already higher up, if you're at 5 and you try and gain 3, 6, 7, and 7 is the max, the rest is of course wasted, and then you spend the token. The health pack gives you 2 health, so wherever you are on here, you just 1, 2, move up 2 spaces on your health track. Grenades are a little bit different. We're going to come back to those. And then ammunition is interesting because if you look closely, there's 6 rounds here. And if you flip it over to the other side, there are 3 rounds. So this is the only one that is 2-sided. So they always start, whenever it comes into the game, you always have it full. And the first time you use it, you flip it, and now it's half full, and then the next time you use it, you discard it. And we'll talk more about ammunition later as well when we talk about grenades. But a couple other things to note about these tactical gear tokens. The robot starts with 1 ammunition and 1 oxygen. Whenever you are in the room with the robot, when you use your tactical gear token action, you can take a token from the robot instead of using one of yours. So you have access to the ammunition and to the oxygen. And then during setup, you will also put 4 of each of these tokens here in the landing zone. And one of the room actions is to gain any number of tactical gear tokens from these slots here. So you can go to the landing zone and kind of resupply on things. Now, it's probably time to start talking about the intruder bag and intruder tokens. So Let's get into that. So there are 4 types of intruder tokens and 4 types of intruders, and this is in the base Nemesis Retaliation game. There are expansions with other intruder types, but these are the ones that come with the game. They are called the Prime Bloods, and they come in 4 flavors. There's the Larva, the Adult, the Drone, and the Queen. Couple things to note. The Larva tokens and the Queen tokens are all identical, and there's no hidden information on the backside. So it's just Larva and Queen. The Adults and the drones are going to have different things on the backside. They're going to have different combinations of numbers, potentially white numbers and or white and red numbers. We'll talk about what those mean later. But you're going to want to, at the beginning of the game, shuffle them all, shuffle the adults and drones face down. So this face, so you don't know what numbers are on the other side. And then you're going to make stacks of these 4 types of intruders. Then to set up our bag, there is a single blank token. It's blank on both sides. You're going to need a blank token, 2 larva, 3 random adult tokens, plus 1 adult token for every character in the game. So we're talking about a true solo game, so 1 more adult. You're going to take all those tokens and throw them in the intruder bag, and we're going to be using that to draw for encounters and having bag development, similar as in other Nemesis games. But in the meantime, let me make a couple of really short stacks here. I'm not using all the tokens. There are a lot of adults, but I've just got some short stacks here because we're going to assume that these are on the table or somewhere nearby, and you're going to want them all stacked like this. And I'll talk about why when we get there. But now we can start to get into some of the bigger gameplay elements. And the first is this bin here, which is removable from the storage area. And that's really smart because you're going to want this on the table, but you don't need the rest of the box. This is nice. So this is full of all the corridors. Now what you're going to want to do is take these. They all have a side that says 0, 0. You're going to put them all on that side and shuffle them up so that they're all nice and mixed. And then all the important information here is generally covered up by this holder so that you can't see the relevant info because you're going to be drawing these as you play the game to build out the map. So what you're going to do is during setup, take the first 3 random corridors and you're going to flip them over and just from top to bottom reveal what they are. So we've got that one, and that one. And then you're going to go ahead and connect them to the landing zone. And we're starting to build out the map here. Now, this line means that a door can go here. And whenever you reveal a door, normally you face it towards the room which you have just explored. And so this door here, we're going to face it towards the landing zone. So just as in other Nemesis games, the door is considered open by default. And then you've got your door tokens here. They have little stands. If you were to place a door standing here, then it is closed. I guess you can't really see, but if you place it like this on its stand, then the door is closed and characters and intruders can no longer go through it or the robot. And then if the door is ever destroyed, from there it can be opened again and you just remove it, or it can be destroyed. If it's destroyed, you knock it over and then it can never be opened, or it can never be closed again, and anybody can always pass through it. So doors work the same way, but doors cannot be everywhere. They can only be in these specified locations. So it's going to be random. And interestingly, you can see now on this side of the tile, we have numbers here and these little triangles sticking out. So we have 4, 2, and 4. These are your corridor numbers. So as you're playing the game and you are rolling for noise, if you were to roll for noise in this landing zone, you can roll a 1 or a 3 and there is no 1 or 3 corridor. So you wouldn't have to place any noise, and that's really nice. But if you roll a 4, now you're placing noise in multiple places. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic, and it really changes up the gameplay in I think, a fun way. Now, on some of these tiles, like this one here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a 4, and then under it, beneath that 4, is a really tiny 3. There is a variant in the rule book where you can make it really difficult, and then this corridor would be activated when you roll a 4 or a 3. I don't choose to play that way. I just use the main numbers, and that's really what I would recommend. But if you do notice that other little number on there, that's what it's for. It's like a secondary number if you want to use that game variant. Now, you may have noticed I've got these decks of cards here. These are going to be pretty familiar to you. You've got serious wounds, attacks, events, contamination, and exploration. This is the one new one. At the beginning of the game, shuffle up each of those decks individually. And now let's talk about exploring. So on your turn, you can discard a card to make a move. So let's say we do that. When you make a move, you're going to choose a corridor to go down. Now, let's say that somehow this room here was already explored. You can choose to enter the explored room, or you can choose to go down one of these corridors that already exist and explore on the other side. So let's start with the easier case that there's already a room here. The first thing that happens whenever you take a move action is any intruders that are in the room you are in or in the corridor, because intruders can also be in the corridors in this game, they all get to make an opportunity attack. So one at a time, starting with the largest, draw an attack card and resolve it. And you will do that, again, just whatever room you're in and whatever corridor you're passing through. You look at all the enemies there, and if there's a bunch, it's maximum of 3 will attack you, but you start with the largest. So you take the biggest 3, they each attack you, assuming you survive. You then complete your move action, and at the end of your move action, you're going to roll for noise. And that this is an important difference from previous Nemesis games. It doesn't matter if there is a character in this room or if there's an intruder in this room already, you are still going to roll for noise each time you move. Now you also have another option when moving. You can, instead of discarding 1 card to move, you can discard 2 cards to make a cautious move. Now when you do that, you're still going to incur those same attacks, and you are still going to roll for noise. But when you get to that room, before you roll for noise, you will also add one of these secure tokens to the room. Now, unless otherwise specified, every room can only hold up to 3 secure tokens. So once you get to the room, add your token, then roll for noise. Now, whenever there is a character and a secure token in a room and an intruder enters the room, by default, whenever an intruder enters a room with a character, they attack. Always. But when an intruder enters a room with a character and a secure token, instead of attacking, you discard 1 of the secure tokens. Now, this only prevents attacks when the intruder is entering the room. If it is already in the room with you, it doesn't matter if there's tokens there or not, the attack is going to happen. But so you can hold up to 3 secure tokens on a tile. Let's say now that you are going from the landing zone to one of these unexplored areas. So maybe we're going to go up here. So you still decide is it going to be a regular move or a cautious move and discard 1 or 2 cards as appropriate. And again, you will still take any attacks the same way as if you went to an explored room. So any intruders in the room you were coming from or in the corridor you're passing through will attack you up to 3 max, starting with the largest and working down. They'll each draw a card. So once that part is over, you kind of get to this blank space here, and you're going to draw the top card from the exploration deck. And it's going to tell you a couple things here on the top. And we have a couple of different examples, but let's say we got this one first. So this says, place a room of the A, B, or C type depending on the section that the room is being placed in. So we are in section A right now, so this is telling me to draw one of these A tiles, and that is the room I am in. So first we're going to place that tile, put our character on it, and then it's telling us to set up additional corridors. So any of these corridors that are not already on the map, we're going to draw from here and place them one at a time. So I will start with this one, and then I'll draw this one. So we've got a number 4. So again, this room has multiple number 4 corridors coming off of it, and then this one is a number 2. Neither of these had a doorway, but if they did, we would face them towards the room that we just entered. Then we're going to look at any other setup symbols here. So this one has a noise token in this corridor just at the moment that you enter. It's already there. But these cards could have other tokens like fire or malfunctions or other things that you're familiar with. And it is important to note that these cards all have this north symbol. I pointed that out earlier. So you can't rotate this in any other specific direction. It's got to align with the map in this particular way. So after you set up the map, then there's a reminder that, hey, if you did a cautious movement, don't forget now is the time to add a secure token to the room. And then there's going to be some sort of effect on the bottom that you're going to resolve. Frequently, this will be to make a noise roll, but not always. So in this case, this says place 4 adults in the corridor that you just passed through, then make a noise roll. Now let's look at a different example. Let's say instead we had drawn this card. This says place a room of the question mark type. So instead of placing this room, we would have drawn from this stack. And this is a bunch of, this is not all of them, but it's a much bigger stack of rooms of a variety of types that may appear in any of the sections. So you never quite know what you're going to get. So maybe in this scenario, we would have gotten this supply room. Then you would again set it up with the corridors and then any tokens that it has. So this also had a noise token there, but it had a corridor coming off down here and up there, but not this way. And we would be putting a fire and a malfunction in the room. And again, there's a reminder to place a secure token if you moved cautiously. Not in this example that I just happened to draw. There is a symbol here. No secure tokens can go in the supply room. So that would have been kind of a wasted movement. That is not common, but it could happen. And then the entrance effect says, close all doors around this room, make a noise roll, and remove this card from the game. So that gives you some idea of the sort of effects that you might see on some of these cards. Now, importantly, when I went from the landing zone to this room here, if this is the card we had drawn, there is no corridor connecting those two rooms. That's okay. It's implied that it's there. Because we went through it. You're just going to add any other corridors that this depicts that are not there. Now, there are some exceptions to that as well. We do have to place rooms within the bounds of these things that we set up during the beginning. This sort of sets the perimeter for where you can place. So if we had this room down here, this is the bottom of the map. When we explored it, if we say we got this, we could not put a corridor coming off of the bottom like it depicts. We would just ignore that because we can't exit. We can't exit from the facility any further than beyond the bounds of that perimeter. Similarly, let me just set a couple things up real quick. Maybe we've got a room like this. Or you know what, better yet, let me move this. We'll come back to that in a minute. So I ran into this the other day. We'll say this C room is here. And we've got a corridor coming off of it. And maybe we explore from the reactor down to here, and we get this supply room. And maybe we get... that doesn't make any sense, but just say we've got this depiction here for the supply room. See this corridor coming off to the right? We cannot actually add that corridor there because we would not be allowed to put a room here. That would be outside the facility. So you cannot add corridors that are going to dead end into the wall of the facility either. Now, as we saw, some exploration cards will be removed from the game, but other than that, if you ever need to draw an exploration card and the deck is empty, then you're just going to shuffle your discard pile and continue to draw from there. Now, something else to point out, we'll use this example here. Let's say we're in this room like this. There's clearly a space for a room up here, but there is no corridor coming off of here. We cannot go that way to try and get to that room. So that space may not be used. The only way a room could be there is if we explore here and it gives us a corridor going west from there, then we can get to that room. So one more rule about placement is you cannot... Let's say the map looked like this. Let me grab a card. Let's say maybe the map looked like this. And now we explore this way. And this is the zone we get. And we draw this card. We can add this corridor coming off to the right and this corridor coming off to the bottom right, but we cannot add one connecting to an existing room because if there were a corridor there, we would have realized it when we explored here. So you were going to not only not add corridors that exit the facility or dead end into the perimeter of the facility, but you will also not connect to rooms that already exist on the map. So I think logically that all makes a lot of sense, and I think it's really fun. It's one of my favorite aspects added in Retaliation is this map building element. The exploration is very different from game to game. Now, one thing that's been noticeably absent from the rules video so far, from the explanation here, has been the intruders. So let's start to talk about them. And we'll start little and work our way up. So we'll start with the larva. We'll go ahead and get some other props out here. So the larva, similar to other games, only takes one hit to kill the larva. If the larva attacks you, it is the only intruder type where you do not draw an attack card. Instead, you gain a contamination and place it on your player board. Now, if you already have a larva on your player board and you get attacked by a larva, you still gain a contamination, but then you just remove that larva mini from the map. So you can only have one on your player board at any given time like normal. Now again, anytime any intruder enters a room with a character, they will attack the character. Or at least they'll make the attempt. If there's a secure token, instead you discard the secure token. Now, if you're playing with multiple people or multi-handed, when the intruder enters the room, if they are going to attack a character, they will prefer to attack whichever character is currently active, whoever kind of caused the intruder to enter. If that doesn't work, the next tiebreaker is just go in turn order. So whoever is the first player, if the first player is not in the room, then you kind of go around the table clockwise. Now, whenever the adults, drones, or queens attack a character, you just draw the next card from the attack deck, and it's going to tell you you've got adult, drone, and queen, and then some sort of effect here. So in this case, all of the intruders have the same effect, but here's another one. Here's Fury. An adult will do this, drones and the queen will do this. So there's different ways that this could be split up, and maybe adults and drones do this, queen does something different. They might all do something different. They might all do something the same, but you just draw the next card and then do what it says. Now, afterwards, you discard that card, and you do not reshuffle this deck until you're told to, because this one has somewhere in here at least one miss, which is a fun one to draw. I don't know where it is. It's in there somewhere. And when you draw it at that point, there it is, miss. Tells you to reshuffle the intruder attack deck. So there's always a chance of a miss. Now, when they attack you, you might lose some health. You might gain contamination. You might also gain a serious wound. These are going to be similar to serious wounds from other games. The cards are smaller though, so they can slot in here. And whenever you gain a serious wound, you will place this as far left as possible on your player board. And if there is a cube there, it will bump the cube down to the right until it can fit. And this will have some sort of ongoing malady on it. And then your cube can never go any higher than that until the serious wound is healed. Now, in the event that you have two serious wounds like this, or I suppose even a third and you're here, but let's say you have two, and you have the ability to heal one of your serious wounds, you can pick to heal whichever one you want, and that's going to depend on what the effects are. So maybe I want to heal this hand wound. If I do that, take any other serious wounds that you still have and just slide them down to the left. And then at this point, I would be allowed to move this marker up, maybe with like a health pack or something, and I would still be injured. I wouldn't be able to be healthy, but you don't leave it where it is and like skip past it and be healthy again. You just make sure that you just slide them down and they're as far left as possible. All right, so we'll put the heavy armor back for now. Put our cube there. We're healthy again. So that's how attacks sort of work. Now, characters can only be in rooms. They can pass through a corridor to get to another room, but they can only be in a room. Intruders can occupy a room or a corridor. Now, a room can hold any number of characters and intruders, but a corridor can hold a maximum of 6 intruders, with the one exception that the queen counts as 4. So if the queen is in a corridor, you can have up to 2 of any more intruders. And so there's going to be various ways that these intruders might move around the map. It'll likely happen due to event cards as well as noise rolls. So let's talk about intruder movement just a little bit more. We'll grab this noise token here. So noise kind of works the same way that you're going to remember from other Nemesis games. You can put one and only one noise token in a corridor. That's the max you can put. If you were to put another one there, you'd be resolving an encounter. So I guess maybe let's talk about resolving encounters. So we've got this helper card. I'll bring this back out. This says the queen is alive, and this is the rules. If the queen is ever killed, then you flip it over to the queen is dead side, and you have a different set of rules. But let's say we're in this room, we've got a noise on this corridor, and then we roll for noise and we get a 2 again. So what we would do is draw a token from the bag. This is resolve noise in a corridor. We would draw a token from the bag, and depending on what kind of token it is, this tells us what to do. So if we got a larva token, we would place a larva in the corridor. If we got a adult or drone token, we would flip it over and look at the numbers on the back and put that many intruders in that corridor. So the white numbers are adults and the red numbers are drones. So it could be a combination of adults and drones that we'd be putting in that corridor. And if we get the queen token, we would, if the queen is not in play yet, put the queen in that corridor. If the queen is already somewhere on the map, we are going to activate the queen. That's something we're going to see a lot. Activate the queen just means if the queen is in a room with a character, then the queen attacks. And if the queen is not in a room with a character, then she will move 1 space towards the closest character. So 1 space is going to mean if she were here, she'd move from this room into this corridor, or if she were in this corridor, she would go from this corridor into this room. And then if you need some sort of tiebreaker for that, then she's just going to go after whichever character, use the same tiebreaker you would for attacking multiple characters in the same room. So whoever's active, and then go by turn order. So that's what activating the queen means. Now, if you ever had an intruder that was in a room and then moved into a corridor with noise, you would remove the noise token, because you can't have both noise and intruders in the same corridor. So a corridor can have noise, and then if an intruder moves in, then the noise just goes away. All right, next we've got our noise die here. The rolling for noise mechanic largely works the same way. So we've got numbers on it. You roll for noise, and you put the noise tokens in the adjacent corridors that match. It could create an encounter. You could roll like a 4 in this room, and if those both had noise, you would have multiple encounters. So you'd be drawing multiple tokens from the bag and following the directions for each. Now, before I continue, I want to come back to this. You're going to draw a token, and not that one. Let's say we draw an adult. Give me one of those. All right, we draw an adult. We flip it over. All right. In this case, maybe we had noise here, and we got to draw from the bag to resolve this. It says 2. We had put 2 adults in that corridor. Then we would take this adult token, put it on the bottom of this stack that is, again, off to the side somewhere. And then the next time you need to add adult tokens to the bag, you draw from the top of this stack. So anytime a token comes out of this bag, it's going to go to the bottom of one of these stacks. Now, the larva and queen are the same. They're all identical, so you can kind of put those on top. But the drones and the adults should be cycling. So you're going to take the use token, put it on the bottom, and then when you need new ones, grab from the top and put those random ones in the bag. The only token that ever can come out of the bag and go directly back in is the blank token. And no matter what you're doing, whenever you draw the blank token, you add 2 random adult tokens to the bag and then return the blank to the bag. So this is a really helpful little handout. So the next way an encounter might happen is maybe you're in a room and you roll for noise and you get this encounter symbol. It looks like this. So when you roll that in a room, then you are going to draw from the bag again. And if you draw a larva, an adult, or a drone, you're going to place 1 intruder of that type in the room. If there's no secure tokens, they're immediately going to attack. Otherwise, you remove a secure token. And if you draw a queen, you are going to activate the queen. So that again means if the queen is in a room with a character, she attacks the character. If she is not in a room with a character, she's going to advance towards the closest character. And if the queen is not on the map, you then add the queen to the map and she does an attack. So before we talk about fighting back, let's take a look at an event card, because that can show us more about how these characters or how these intruders might move. So the first thing that's going to happen on an event card is there's typically going to be a box up here on top that's going to tell you a certain type of corridor. So it's either going to be like this backslash shape, a forward slash shape, or this horizontal shape. So this one says all intruders in each backslash shaped room move. Whenever they move, they're going to move from the corridor into the next room. And again, they will try and move towards whoever the closest character is. Now, when you resolve that, you're going to start in the top left corner and just go in like English reading order and resolve all corridors of the correct shape and move things towards the closest character. After you do that, then it says, then all intruders in every room move. So then intruders that are in a room will move into a corridor, again, advancing towards the closest character. Now, intruders who are already in a room with a character are not going to move, and intruders who are in a corridor who move into a room with a character will each attack. So that might happen a couple different places over the map. Now, if you've got, say, 6 adults in this corridor and it says to move them, whenever they are kind of moving around the facility, when one enters a room with a character, only one will enter. A maximum of 1 will enter at a time, so you won't get attacked 6 times at once. So 5 will stay in the corridor, 1 will enter. If there's multiple types, the largest one will enter. And same thing sort of as they're moving around, you use a similar type of logic. If there's too many intruders in a corridor in a room to kind of like have them all move together, you're going to move the largest ones that you can. Now let's talk a bit about how to fight these things. So let's put an intruder in our room, and we'll put another one in this corridor. So you have 2 options when attacking. First is called shoot, and that is when you're attacking an intruder that is in the same room as you. So this is a basic action. You have to discard one card to do it. So fire a shot in the room. When you do this, you must choose one functioning weapon in your hand. Now I say functioning because in this game, in addition to putting malfunction markers on rooms, you can get malfunction markers on your gear. So if it's got a malfunction on it, then you can't use it. But you select a functioning weapon in your hand that has an ammo token. It does not need to be full, it just needs to have an ammo token on it. Then after you've selected that, select an intruder in your room. Now the first thing you're going to do is immediately hit the target because you're a good shot. So you're going to place one of these damage cubes next to that intruder. Then you're going to roll one of these combat dice. So this is a red D8, and we've got on this side 2, 4, 5, and the skull. This is a critical hit. If you whatever number you roll, if the intruder has that many or more cubes beside it, then it dies. So let's say you roll a 2. It only has one cube next to it now, so the intruder's still alive. If you were to shoot it again, you put another cube, say you rolled a 2. That means you've taken out all its life, so then you remove the intruder. Or if you had 3 cubes on it and you rolled a 2, remove the intruder, all the tokens go away. The skull is a critical hit, so if you roll that, you immediately kill the intruder, put it back in the box, take the cubes away. And finally, the last one here is, there we go, that ammo symbol. If you roll that, that means you took a lot of shots. You kind of sprayed in order to get that one hit. So you have to take the ammo token on the ammo that you used and either flip it to the half-filled side, or if it's already on the half-filled side, then you need to remove that token. So that is shooting stuff. So it's not that dissimilar from other Nemesis games. You don't have to draw a card to find out the intruder health though. So you know you're going to hit it once and then you're going to roll something. So maybe it'll be a critical hit. Otherwise, 2, 4, 5. Hold on a sec. 2, 4, 3, 4, 5, 5. So there's a 2, a 3, 2 4s, and 2 5s. So you have some idea of how much health it's going to take to kill that thing. Now, some of your weapons, of course, are going to give you special abilities where maybe you're able to place more damage on these enemies. And then you could get a critical hit, but you could also lose some ammunition. Now, if an intruder has damage and for whatever reason the character is gone and maybe it moves later, whenever an intruder, is in a corridor, if it had any damage cubes, you get rid of them all. Intruders in corridors cannot have any damage cubes. So let's say instead of attacking this guy, we want to attack this guy in the corridor. That is called a burst. And again, it's going to cost 1 action card. And when you burst, again, you choose a functioning weapon with ammunition on it, and you choose a corridor. And the first thing you need to do is you will spend ammunition because you're spending a bunch of ammo to spray down this corridor. So if it was full, you go down to half. If it's half, you discard. But you will use ammunition when you burst. Then the next thing you're going to do is roll one of these purple D6. This is the burst die. So there's 3 1s, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And the 4 also has a special symbol around it, like a little target. When you roll the 4, then you apply the 4 and you apply any effects that have the target. So we've chosen our weapon, we've spent some ammo, we pick a corridor, we roll the die, and let's say that we got a bigger number. Let's say that we got a 3. You can apply that damage however you want in that corridor, but it must be done fully. So for each point that you got, so I've got 3 points to spend, it takes 1 point to kill a larva, 1 point to kill an adult, 2 points to kill a drone, and you cannot split it. You can't give it 1 because it has no damage cube. So if you're going to attack a drone, you got to use 2 fully. And the queen's a little different. You apply any amount you want to the queen. But if you haven't gathered, this makes it much easier to kill the intruders in corridors than in the room with you. So they're going to be moving around the map. There's going to be big groups of them, and you're going to want to get them in these little corridors and then do these burst fires because you can take out a bunch of intruders all at once. You can roll a 4, take out 4 adults in one shot, and there's just nothing like that in previous Nemesis games. So again, apply the hits how you want, but you can give 1 to a larva to remove it, 1 to an adult to remove it, 2 to a drone to remove it, and as many as you want to the queen. And again, we'll talk about the queen in a second. But this is a good time to talk about the grenade now. So we do have one more tactical item we haven't talked about, this tactical gear. You can spend 1 card to use a grenade. And when you use a grenade, then you pick a corridor, you roll the burst die. You don't need to have any other weapon. You just discard the grenade, and whatever this number is, you add 2 to it. and then you apply the results however you want. So those are really strong too. And then those are the main methods of fighting back. Either in the room you shoot, or in an adjacent corridor you burst. And of course you cannot burst through a closed door if you hadn't figured that. There is another effect in the game called repel. If you repel, then you fire, or you follow whatever instructions are telling you to repel. But if you were having this intruder repel, then you would pick any adjacent corridor and have them move away. Basically, it means move away. And you can repel any intruder that is either in your room or in an adjacent corridor. So I can have this adult repelled into the corridor. They're going to heal, but now I can more easily take them out with the drone. Or you can have this drone that was already in that corridor. You can repel them back into this room. Now, if it was going to repel and there was a closed door here, it would just break the door and stay in the corridor. And then you can never have an intruder repel off of the map. They must stay on the map. So if they're in this corridor and you try to repel them from the landing zone, they would just stay where they are. They can't get any further away. But there are some game effects where you can have the intruders get further away from you. So let's talk quickly here about queen health. So at the beginning of the game, we're going to take one of these red cubes and put it up on this track on 0. That is the queen's hits. And then there's also this deck of queen health cards. I'm going to shuffle these up and put it right there where it says queen health cards. So during the game, every time the queen takes a hit, you're going to advance that token 1 space. When it gets past the 4 onto the skull space, then you will first stop counting any of their hits. Like you can't carry it over and keep cycling it. But each time you get up to that skull space, you stop moving the cube, and then you draw the top card from this queen health deck. Now, first it's going to have a number here. It says discard 1. You're going to discard 1 additional card without looking at it. Then you're going to do whatever this says. It says repel the queen. So we just talked about repelling. So you'd have the queen move away 1 space. Then you discard this card as well. And then you reset that cube back to 0. And so there's this deck of cards that you're trying to get through. And hopefully, if you're lucky, you'll get something that like will have you discard 3 cards at a time. But the queen is not dead until this entire deck is empty. So the moment the last of these cards is discarded, remove the queen from the map, you can remove that token, and you're going to flip this over to the queen is dead side. And from now on, you're going to ignore any effects that would put the queen on the map. So that is how you kill the queen. So I guess I can finally put these up where they go. I have just a couple other odds and ends that I need to cover before we're done with this rules refresher. One of them is the search action is a little different. So you can see on these rooms, there's pre-printed icons here that match the different item types, the medical, technical, or military items. When you do a search action in a room, you draw 1 card from each of the piles depicted there. So in this instance, you would draw a military card and a medical card. And then from those cards, you would pick 1 to keep and place all others on the bottom of their respective decks without revealing them. If you were in the surgery room, you would draw 3 medical cards. So there's going to be a lot more variety in these search actions. You can see the supply room is 1 of each type of card. So that's pretty neat. Also, it didn't come up anywhere else. You have an ability in this game now called Secure. You can secure a corridor. When you secure a corridor, you're going to take that corridor tile and flip it over. If it had a door section, then you're going to keep the door facing the same way. So this one's facing the landing zone. If we were to secure this, we would flip it over so the door is still facing the landing zone, keeping the door status as whatever it is. But when a corridor is secure on the backside, its number is always 0. So that number will never come up again on a noise roll. So that's a pretty handy thing to have. In terms of surviving the game, we've got the Hibernatorium. I assume you kind of know how that works. We already talked at length about the landing zone. There's also a room in Section C called the Escape Shuttle. So to use this room, this is kind of like an escape pod. So there's only 1 escape shuttle. And if anybody's in this room, you can take the room action to use the escape shuttle, follow the directions. But if you use the escape shuttle, then you take your mini and you place it right here on the escape shuttle, and you are considered gone, and nobody else from that point on can use the escape shuttle. So that is another way to get out of the facility. And on that note, I do want to point out in the booklet here, there's a really helpful procedures page on 38. So right at the end of the booklet that talks about the infection procedure, the occlusion procedure, the auto-destruction procedure, and the escaping or hibernating procedure. So whenever a procedure is referenced, there is a really quick place you can turn to in the book just to reference how to follow that procedure. A couple other odds and ends. If you ever need to play place a malfunction token on a room and you have no more malfunction tokens, the facility is not destroyed in this case. In that case, you start using fire tokens instead of malfunction tokens, and you're going to start setting things on fire. And then finally, I just want to talk broadly, like a high-level overview, now that we've gone over a bunch of little specific things, just about the round structure. So as in other Nemesis games, there is the player phase first, where each player goes around in order and takes their turn. On your turn, you perform 2 actions. If you cannot perform 2 actions, you have to pass. Passing is an action. And then at the end of your turn, including turns where you've passed, as I covered, if you're in a section where the life support is off, then you have to lose an oxygen. And if you're in a room with fire, then you need to lose 1 health. After all characters have passed, then you go to the intruder phase, where if there's an intruder in a room that's on fire, they take 1 damage. You don't roll any dice, so they can't die from fire damage, but it makes them a little bit weaker, so that if you do shoot them later, you've got more hits on them, so a better chance to take them out that way. And then any intruders are in a room with a character will attack. And because they're already in the room with the character, secure tokens would not do anything in that case. So that's the intruder phase, just intruders burning and then intruder attacks. Then there's the event phase. The event phase has 2 steps. You're going to draw an event card, fully resolve it, and then you're going to do bag development. Works similar to other Nemesis games, and there's a section here on this reminder card for that, again on both sides. You're going to draw 1 token, and then you're going to take that token. If it's blank, you're going to follow these directions, put the blank back in the bag, but if it's a larva, adult, drone, or queen, you will take the drawn token and remove it, and then follow these directions. And then after bag development, you will pass the first player token, you're going to draw your action cards, and at that point, the last thing you do is advance the time track. So that is it. It is not 100% exhaustive, but if you're familiar with Nemesis, that's enough to get you started. That's at least a quick overview of all the new mechanics and new stuff going on in this game. It's going to play way differently. I really like it, and I've got a solo playthrough playing true solo coming out in a couple days. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy this content, please leave a like on the video so I know to make more Nemesis Retaliation content. There's a bunch of stuff in this game, so I'd like to get it to the channel at some point. And then as always, you can like this video on Board Game Geek. You can like it, of course, here on YouTube. You can leave comments if you've got questions or if you think I've made a mistake, or if you just want to talk about the game, I'm happy to do that too. And of course, you can share it with somebody else who you want to play Nemesis Retaliation with. But I think that's it. So thank you so much for sticking with me and watching Table for One. I hope this was useful for you. I really do enjoy Nemesis Retaliation, and I'm looking forward to sharing the solo playthrough that I just recorded as well. So be sure to check that out. So again, thank you very much for watching, and have a great week. I will see you in the next video.